In 1971, the world changed forever. One decision, made behind closed doors in Washington, D.C., silently dismantled a system that had governed global finance for decades. Gold lost its crown, and paper money became the new god. But what the world didn't see was that this wasn't just about economic stock. It was the birth of a financial empire, one that would control nations not through armies or weapons, but through debt. An invisible kingdom that still rules the world today. This is the story of the secret empire controlling global debt since the 1970s. Part 1. The day money stopped being real. It's August 15th, 1971. President Richard Nixon appears on national television. His tone is calm, but his words will echo through centuries. I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold. Temporarily? That one word would change everything. Because before that day, the US dollar was backed by gold. 1 ounce of gold equals 35 US dollars. Simple, real, tangible. But when Nixon temporarily broke that link, money became an idea, no longer tied to anything of value. Now, governments could print as much as they wanted. Banks could lend as much as they pleased. And debt? Debt became the most powerful product in human history. Part 2. The birth of the debt empire. The 1970s were chaos. Oil shocks, inflation, collapsing currencies. The old world order was gone. Out of this chaos rose a new system, quietly designed by a network of central bankers, economists, and politicians. At the heart of it all, the U.S. Federal Reserve, the Bank for International Settlements, and the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, together. They created what many now call the debt machine. It worked like this. When a poor country needed money, the IMF would help. They'd lend billions, but with conditions. In exchange, the country had to privatize state industries, cut public spending, and open its markets to foreign investors. Sounds like help, but in reality, it was control. A form of modern economic colonization. By the 1980s, dozens of countries, from Latin America to Africa, had fallen into this trap. They owed billions and couldn't escape. Every repayment meant less food, fewer schools, and more poverty, while international banks kept collecting interest. That was the real empire, not built with guns, but with contracts and signatures. Part 3. The Petrodollar Conspiracy. But the most brilliant and sinister move came after 1973. When Nixon killed the gold standard, the dollar risked collapse. So America made a secret deal with Saudi Arabia. The deal was simple. The U.S. would protect the Saudi royal family. In return, all global oil would be sold only in U.S. dollars. And just like that, oil, the most essential resource on Earth, became tied to the dollar. If any country wanted oil, they needed U.S. dollars first. This was the birth of the petrodollar system, a financial weapon disguised as an economic arrangement. It guaranteed permanent demand for the dollar. It gave Washington infinite spending power. And it turned the U.S. into the financial heart of the planet. From that moment, the dollar wasn't just America's currency. It was the world's lifeblood. Part 4. The hidden masters, B's, and the central banks. While the world focused on Wall Street and the White House, the real power was elsewhere. In a quiet city called Basel, Switzerland, stood a building that looked ordinary from the outside. But inside, the world's central bankers met in secret. This was the Bank for International Settlements, or BIS, the central bank of central banks. It had diplomatic immunity, its own rules, its own police, even its own laws. No government could touch it. From its offices, the BIS coordinated global monetary policy, setting interest rates, managing liquidity, and guiding financial crises before they even made headlines. The public never voted for these people. They never appeared on ballots, but they had more power than presidents or parliaments. And to this day, they decide how much your money is worth and how much debt your nation carries. Part 5. The Trap of Infinite Growth. With every crisis, the empire grew stronger. In the 1980s, Latin America fell. In the 1990s, Asia was targeted. In 2008, the entire global economy collapsed, and still, the same empire came out richer. How? Because the solution to every crash was always the same: more debt. Banks that caused the crash were bailed out. Governments borrowed more to save them. Central banks printed trillions to stimulate recovery. And every time, ordinary people paid the price through inflation, job losses, and higher taxes. The empire learned a crucial lesson: the worse the crisis, the stronger their control. Part 6, the digital phase. Money without borders. By the 2010s, the old paper system was outdated. The world was moving toward a new frontier: digital finance. Cryptocurrency was born decentralized, uncontrolled, and borderless. For a moment, it seemed like humanity had a chance to escape the empire, but the central banks adapted. They began developing CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, a digital form of money, programmable, traceable, and controllable. Every transaction recorded, every payment monitored. The dream of digital freedom quickly turned into a blueprint for digital control. Under a CBDC system, governments could freeze accounts, limit spending, or expire your savings, all with a few keystrokes. The empire was going digital. And this time, there would be no way out. Part 7. The illusion of democracy. Politicians come and go. Parties rise and fall. But behind the curtain, the same system remains untouched. Why? Because debt means dependency, and dependency means control. Every election promise, every war, every bailout, all funded by the same endless borrowing. And who provides the money? The very institutions that profit from that debt. It's a perfect circle. Governments borrow, gives central banks print, gives citizens pay, gives empire grows. The illusion of democracy hides the machinery of financial slavery. Part 8. The future. Endgame of the empire. Today, the world's total debt has surpassed $300 trillion. That's more than 3 times the global GDP. In other words, the world owes more than it can ever repay. And yet, markets keep rising. Currencies keep devaluing, and the average person keeps working harder for money that buys less. The empire doesn't need to conquer nations anymore. It already owns them through debt. But something is changing. People are waking up. Nations like China and Russia are moving away from the dollar. Alternative systems are forming, from BRICS to crypto economies. The empire still stands, but its foundations are cracking. Ending cinematic outrule. For over 50 years, the world has lived under the illusion of prosperity, powered by debt, controlled by unseen hands, and justified by economic myths. But when the final bubble bursts and the credit lines dry up, we'll finally see who truly owns the world. Because the secret empire doesn't rule through guns or governments. It rules through belief in the value of paper. And when that belief dies, so does the empire. Outro music slow fade. Dark ambient T-tone. The secret empire controlling global debt since the 1970s. Narrated by your channel name. Subscribe for more deep stories about money, power, and the hidden forces that shape our world.